All right, so we'll just rock and roll. So, man, we are so grateful today. We got the man, the myth, the legend. Is it four-time Stanley Cup champion, Darren McCarty, Detroit Red Wing fan. It feels a little bit odd, me being a Colorado boy, born and raised, grew up through the rivalry, watched D-Mac beat Lemieux up at one point in time. That leaves a little sour taste in my mouth to even say D-Mac, but I mean,
it can't leave a sour taste in your mouth, bro, because here's the ultimate respect that I always have and love for the people and the fans of Colorado is they understood what he did, and we all knew. And you want to talk about, and we'll get back into the presence of God in my life throughout, but you want to know that, listen, that wasn't Scorsese. That wasn't Ford Coppola. That wasn't Spielberg. That was the big guy writing the script to that, because the way that was able to get the revenge on Claude Lemieux for hitting Chris Draper from behind. And it's not, because you have to realize bad things in life and bad things in sports happen. Yeah. You cannot lose respect for a fellow human being. And that's what Claude did. So me being a messenger and me being a disciple of the Lord, he empowered me. Now, I mean, I'm biased because he made me the star, but I guess you have to, that would explain, I guess, where I'm going to go in my spiritual journey, because I'm not religious. I mean, I believe in everything. I read everything and whatever, but I believe in God. And I'm very fortunate. It goes to show you how connected that I was, that he uses me to there. That's coming up on 25 years ago to keep me around to this day for everything I've been through. But he's always been there. He's the only one that's always been there. I grew up with my mom, who remarried. My grandfather raised me when I was young, grandparents. And, you know, we lived in the backyard of a church, United Church. So we go. And I mean, I remember singing, there's a video of me like at 5 years old going up and to sing or something like this. And you'd think it'd be a church hymn or something like this. Like sang Rhinestone Cowboy, right? You know what I mean? Like it just didn't really matter, which in the whole scheme of things, which is my God, you know, which is the one all powerful, the higher spirit that I believe in, because I'm not the end all be all, is the fact that he's got my sort of sense of humor, but he's always been there. I've had the bat phone. I tell everyone, and it's like anything else. It's whether the tough times that I've had is when I've ignored him. It's not him ignoring me. It's me ignoring him. It's me, because sometimes when you're younger, and I guess just with my story and my path, I'll be 50 April 1st, but I just celebrate over 6 years sobriety. Finally from alcohol and pills. It's well documented. I have my own cannabis brand because I live by the principles of Alcoholics Anonymous, higher power, spirituality, stuff like this, except my program has a garden. And I think that just with education and where we're at in 2022 and where I've come, it's helped. And whether it's that way or some of our brethren, you know, a great buddy of ours, Scott Parker, whether it's psilocybin or education to help, there's reasons why. I firmly believe, and I know this because I asked them, and it's pretty much, you know, the answer, but when you have an endocannabinoid system and it's built for this plant that the Lord built you with, that's what it's there for. And it goes beyond that, because that's just about one plant, but it goes to all the other plants and how they help and you know, certain like that. So I've always, for me to be able to accomplish my goal of making it to the NHL, which was my number one priority, he rode shotgun with me. He believed in me. Nobody else did.
Let's go back into that a little bit. So tell us more. Like, what was it like? You grew up in Michigan, right?
No, I grew up in Southern Ontario. So the house I grew up in, give or take 10 minutes for the borders, 40 minutes. Okay. But I grew up in a town called Leamington when my mom got remarried when I was 5 years old. And my relationship strengthened with God by hating my stepfather. You know. So
tell us more about that. So tell us what that. What does that look like?
And it's one of those things that the McCarty name, I've taken McCarty name. Craig McCarty passed away in 1999. It's the same thing as all the lessons and the things that get mad that I teach when I was younger are how I live the principles to this day. You know what I mean? Where you're younger, you don't understand. But he was a workaholic. He was, more verbally abusive, never physically abusive, because I would have beat his ass since I was 12 years old. I mean, but it was never that. It was more psychological. It was more something else. So I had to, Calvin had Hobbes. A lot of us, what I encourage you to reach out is that hotline to God. You don't need to go. Like, here's the one thing with me too, is I grew up in Leamington. You got to understand, Leamington, Ontario is a melting pot. So Jewish, Muslim, Chaldeans, Catholics, all of it was around, right? Yeah. So you'd eat here, there, you'd learn all different. I learned all different religions, but the one constant was God, right? And I had that relationship, and it was more to believing in myself, right? That's what he always gave me, the confidence in myself, because it wasn't, as I realized, it was because it's that motivating factor when you have to have somebody to believe in you. And for whatever reason, I've just always, I can't explain it, but I've always known, like I've always had the relationship. If I think back, right? Yeah. Now, I have a problem with Father, Son, Holy Spirit, because that's three. I don't get, like, the way I concept it is there's one. It's him. I pick up my phone. I call him. I go, yo, what up, dude? Like, and he'll always answer. Maybe not on my time, but if I'm open, and I know I'm all over the place, but I got to fast forward to 2019 in December, because that was not life changing, but life reinforcing, because there's a movie out called The Russian Five documentary, and it documents the rivalry and throughout and the relationship, and it tells about bringing the Russian Five over to Detroit. But along that way and stuff like this, but in December of 2019, I got to go to Israel, and I got to go to the Great Wall. I got to go to all the stuff. I got to stand at the wall. And when I tell everybody my experience, it's a lot like other people, where you walk in and it's separated, the wall's separated between male and female. This is the way they do it. Now you can feel this buzz and this hum and this spiritual vibe when you get down to sort of the ground zero level where everybody is. The minute you walk to that wall, you're the only one, you and him, if whatever it is, you're the only, like, it's something that everything sort of falls into place. And if I would tell anybody what I took from that, is my ability to receive the message. The message has always been out there. It's just now it's in 4K, right? And it's in 4K because, and you understand this, because when you've gone through different things, and life's a constant journey of learning who you are. When you find out, like I tell everybody, I knew D-Mac, the hockey player, wrestling, the larger than life public person, was since I was 6 years old. It took me to 46 to realize who Darren McCarty was. Mm-hmm. And now what I'm doing is just combining all these things. And there's a reason that, if you look at you look at my journey, I mean, I should be dead numerous times over because of my alcohol, because of my drug abuse, because of different things like that. But even in more to receive the message, it's like you said, it's for somebody else. My story is so somebody else knows there is hope. Absolutely. And as long as you don't quit, and that's, I remember, and it was almost like, when you hear the people that have these, they die and then come back and they see the white light, or they all report or whatever like this.
Yeah.
I remember, and it wasn't, I wasn't dead or anything like that, but I remember the moment when I decided to fight, and it was sort of, I look at it like God was standing beside me and saying, it's your call. I'm here. You want to fight or whatever else, if you're going to quit. And it's sort of like, and in the big scheme of things, that's the motivating factor to me in my life when you tell me that I can't do something. And it was almost like, oh, dude, so out of everything, you're just gonna quit on this one. I get it. No, no worries. All right. Like one of those sort of things. So it was just to be able to get up. And then through my sobriety, it just things that I don't think is things that I know.
Right. And that's so tell me this, Darren, let's go back. I want to get a little bit of a timeline here. So we skipped forward to 19 in your journey through that wall. Yeah. But let's go back to that childhood. So you grew up, you basically raised by your grandfather. Did they take you to church on a regular basis?
Yeah, the church, we go every Sunday, United Church, and, Sunday school and so, and then as I got older, I go to Catholic with some of my teammates, or I go to synagogue, or I go whatever. I was always, because of my connection to God, I was always interested in letting him know.
So you got the variety. You got the whole melting pot.
I got it. I got everything, and I read everything, and I understand, and I look. See, my perception is you're all doing the same thing. It's just in a different message. But it was also too, as I look back, I want, in a sort of way, is that I appreciated the fact that he was there for me. So I wanted to show him that I'd show up. And it's not about going to church, because every day, I'm not a church goer or whatever like that. But I talk to him every day. I have a Bible that, it's funny that even the New Testament, I'm huge into the Old Testament, because March 26, 97 is all Genesis. It's just eye for an eye. And I was always I could see how I'm built by that. But the lessons I learned in the New Testament, and I encourage anybody who's not scared, of whatever else, like, you're not supposed to look into that. But I play a game with myself every now and then. I'll grab the New Testament, I'll crack open and see what verse, chapter, whatever. And no matter what I'm reading, it applies in some way, if that makes sense.
They say the Bible's the living word, right? So like it's alive, like it's a lesson for you, exactly what's going through in your life. That's how God speaks to us through it.
And that's just the understanding. And for whatever reason, it's a lot like breaking the stigma of cannabis. Where'd you go?
Oh,
there you go.
Lost you.
No, I got it.
So tell us. So you kind of attended church as you're little, and as you got old, you've always kind of been everywhere. Your relationship with God, not religion, which I respect that. Like that says, tell us more about the hockey career. Like, how old were you when you started playing hockey?
6. Started out, played goal till I was about 10. That's why I can't skate. But I loved it.
You were a goalie, huh? I didn't know that.
Yeah, well, that's why I can't skate. Yeah, that's why I got that sick goalie mentality in the back of my mind too, right? You know what I mean? Like
we've always said, there's something just different about him. Like there's something. One of my best friends growing up was our goalie always, and love that guy to death. One of my best friends to this day. But
well, you're talking about Chris Osgood. Ozzy's. We came in together. He's my little brother. Like he's not even a year younger than I am, but he's always been the little brother. But yeah, and he's the most normal goalie, and he's not normal. But yeah, so
tell us about that career.
Why I can't. Well, I always told why I couldn't do things, whatever, but I was willing to do whatever it took. Like when I talk about my stepdad, he owned a air conditioned refrigeration business. That's where I learned that it was a job you couldn't quit or you couldn't get fired from. But you could play your way out of it, right? That was my motivation, because I hated it, but it would motivate me to make money to go to Can-Am Hockey School for 2 weeks every summer, blah, blah, blah. And I just kept getting better, and I would never take no for an answer. And then when Brian Drum told me the key to make it to the NHL when I was 16 was do something better than 99.9% of the people, and that was play physical, fight, do all that, I was in. Right. I mean, that's what it was. And along the way, I won Player of the Year in the OHL, finished second in the CHL to Corey Hirsch in 92. The year I got drafted to Detroit. That was a heck of a year, but like you can't do it by yourself. You're blessed. And so I don't know. I guess my whole thing is that don't forget, like the thing now is that I'm grateful every day. every time, not just when things go bad or when you need it. I grew out of that. Hey, the old, oh God, if you get me out of this, I'll never do it again phase. And it was developing a relationship. And you know what? I love when they say he is a father, because there is some, as you mature, your relationship changes. Like that's for me anyways. You know what I'm saying? Like and that's true. And so as the relationship with him changed, and relationships with people here in that you deal with, the respect comes in. So, I mean, it's a circle, but it's the one thing that the constant in my whole life that's always been there. It's that. And I think it is that you can develop, you don't have to develop it. Like I said, I don't do religion.
Yeah.
I do spirituality.
Like we have a certain church. But so tell me, so as you come up through the ranks, you played goalie till 10. Where did you go after that? Were you playing like? Oh, then I played.
Nope. So I played minor hockey, and then after my major Bantam year, which the last year I skated with 5 different teams, all above me up to the junior team. So I was always skating with better players and playing at my age level and dominating. And then when I was 16, I went to Peterborough, which was about 5 hours away. Moved away with the coach I was mentioning, Brian Drum, and got drafted to the OHL, which is like the WHL, to Belleville. Played 3 years there. Won OHL Player of the Year my last year as a 19-year-old, and got drafted 2nd round to Detroit. Played a year in the minors, and then made the team as a 21-year-old. And that was 93, 94.
So then from there, you have to remind me, so you come into the league, you played 1 year. What was the minor league team?
Oh, it was the Adirondack Red Wings, toughest team in pro hockey that year. I mean, and then that was like, if you look at my stat, I put up numbers. I think I had 19 goals or 17 goals and almost 40 points, but I had 278 penalty minutes, right? Establish yourself. I had 45 majors, but I had the Bob Bugners, Dennis Vials, Jim Cummins, Serge Engelhardt, Gord Krupke's, Kirk Tomlinson's behind me, right? So it was like fearless. Let the little dog out of the cage, and he's going to go out there and pick fights with everybody. And get beat up sometimes, but who cares? He's coming back. And it was the greatest confidence builder to work into what I eventually had to do. So then I made the team the next year, which was fortunate because the Red Wings made a coaching change and brought Scotty Bowman in. So I did enough crazy things, and that he realized that needed me and stuff like that. And and that sort of thing. And here's the one thing which is hard to do, and you're looking back, is to believe the hype that people, tell you either how great you are or whatever. And I had FOMO before FOMO was cool, right? So I was always life of the party, always last one to leave, always didn't want to miss anything out. And, like a lot of things, it was because it didn't, know how long it would last.
Right.
Right.
And cherish every moment of it. Right. You don't want it
to. And that was it. And not only because here's the one thing too, is you don't have to realize, but you grow up with all your buddies and stuff, and they're stuck family business doing whatever. You go hang out with them. That's their relief. So you better have a good story.
Yeah.
Right? Or else you're letting the boys down. And then, you realize you grow out of it and stuff like this. But, I don't know. I always wish just along the way that and this is what he won't tell you, is he won't tell you his plan for you.
Yeah.
You have to, I know this is the plan that he had for me, but I took the long way to get there, but the patience to do it, but I didn't quit. You know what I'm saying? And it's still there. And like you said, it's still adamant to me. When I decided that it was November 11th, 2015, that I was done, no matter what. And that commitment. And ever since then, and once I got the physical addiction to alcohol out of me, right, then the spirit, because spiritually I was already there for a year.
Right.
So I guess the advice would be, it's a journey.
Yeah.
It's baby steps a lot of the way, no matter what it is. And even too, if you're developing a new relationship or rekindling a relationship with God, he's always there.
So tell me, like, when you came into the league 93, 94, like, when did, were you talking to God at that point? I know you said you always kind of had a relationship, but you also said the rough patches in your life came when you weren't listening or you weren't having the relationship with him. So as you come into the league, do you leave God behind? And then as you're in the league and you get going, 93, what was the first cup?
97.
97. So you're in the league for 3 years at least. And so you're making the cup run. You're coming to the league. You basically come in because of your hard work and because of the grind, right? Because you're an animal.
Here's the greatest way to sum this up. I've won 4 cups, and each cup that we've won, I've been sober for. So my relationship has been very strong with God as a higher power, getting through different things. But I never drank out of the cup till 2013, alcohol, right? You know what I'm saying? So
you were on the straight.
It was self-serving when I wasn't on the straight, right? Where I could say I had a relationship, but it was more self-serving. Like, I'll return his calls on my time. I got this, or whatever else. Or, hey, dude, bail me out. You know what I'm saying? One of those, until the fact where I went through, like, I've been through 4 rehabs. I've been sober. I was sober for 10 years. You know what I mean? Like, I've had those, and it's always been when my relationship's been stronger. Now, my relationship has never been stronger to now, but everything, but it's taken time. Like, that's almost 25 years of developing this sort of relationship, but I could see it was more self-serving. But when we did win the cups, which I was sober for, my relationship was tight.
What was it?
Like that.
So tell me about the league. Like, what was it in those times of the cup that kept you sober? Like, in the early years, when you first came in the league, did you still party and you did those kind of things?
Oh, absolutely. The league kept me. Dude, I was in the player program for alcohol and drugs and shit like that, so I had to. Right. I mean, it was a livelihood and stuff like that. But when you do that, see, if I'm into something, I'm 100% in. So when I get sober, right, and that's the whole thing, is realizing where the mistakes were along the way. Right. And that's the difference between that and with the relationship and wherever else. I always had an end date. Well, the end date was 2099. It messes your head up, right? When you still are hanging on to something like that. So between cannabis, getting the physical addiction, and then my relationship with the higher power and working my program, not anybody else's, my program. But I've nurtured this thing in different ways for 20, 25 years, right? Turned into a hobby to get sober into an occupation.
Right. So when you come to the league, like, obviously Parks has told me stories of different things like in the league and how prevalent it is. And, did the league cause the painkiller addiction? Like, did that come from that? Or I
didn't have a pain. The pain, I was alcoholic.
Just alcohol?
But then the best thing about being alcoholic was realizing I wasn't a cokehead. I didn't have a cocaine problem. That was just the equalizer to drink more. So my big thing was alcohol. And I'm grateful for it, because as I sit here today, I'm healthier. My blood work and my system has healed itself, and I'm healthier than I was even when I played. Now, the difference with the opiates is you sever these retenders and you're always going to have this urge, and they're never going to reconnect. Alcohol, your body will repair itself. That's the blessing of it, right? So it always, alcohol, just listen. Like, if you're saying out of anything, is that it was always that if you smoke pot or use pot or whatever like that, you'd never be a hockey player, because you can't be a stoner and a hockey player. But here, kid, how old are you? 14. Oh, here's a beer. Here's whatever else. And it doesn't, genetically, I believe it's a disease, and I have the alcohol gene in me that I've tried it every way I can to either control it, to do it, or whatever. I can't. I'm grateful. I'm not allergic. I'm not a diabetic. I'm not allergic to chocolate. That'd ruin my buzz. But I think more so to your point, yeah, it's society. It's education to where it is now. Look at the way guys take care of themselves on, off, eating, all this stuff compared to back in the day.
Right.
Right. So, I mean, it's just the evolution of everything else. And I think that, would you say that when we talk, like, you always know when you bring up God or you bring up the Bible or something like this, there's a bunch of the population that cringes. Yeah. Like, you know what I mean? Like, just like you're not supposed to. I believe just like everything else, there's education and the more transparency in the world as we work into 2022, that people are becoming more comfortable into, if that's their thing or they want to learn more, what do you mean by that? Then they can, that's why you do these things. That's why we talk about it. And it's great how you're able to piece it together because you see it from 30,000 feet on these journeys because of your relationship to everything else. And I love the fact that you just, it's sort of how in my world, God sort of works. He sort of points these things out. Well, like, the living word and the this and that and a reminder, the different things like that of how the flow is supposed to be. I mean, the kicker, I'm sold March 26, 97. The way that he made that, he made me the star. So he made me a firm believer since then. Right. The fact that, and then I don't even mention the Stanley Cup clinching goal that I scored. You know what I mean?
No need to throw that in, right? No.
Well, I mean, he just does. That's the thing. My God to me showed for some reason, he gives me a sign of almost immediate returns. Right. If it's right or if it's wrong. There'll be something that lets me know. And the fact that I can receive the message now, I know in my heart of hearts. Now I still have my wife and my small circle around me to bounce things off of. But for the most part, I know before I even start the question. Right. I'm one of those ones that ask the question knowing the answer.
Well, we know that the Bible says to humble yourself before the Lord and he shall exalt you, right? So like it's easy, especially in your position, to be, you clinched a cup with the goal. The Lemieux incident, you were able to get the retaliation, the judgment, if you will, on that situation. It's so easy. And I'm sure there was a lot of times in your life where you're either being who you are, you're either put on a pedestal daily, and I'm sure there was times that you put yourself on a pedestal. But nowadays, as you continue to grow your relationship with God, he's reminding you to stay humble. So I can even kind of feel it in this podcast right now. I'm trying to get you to embellish a little bit about the greatness of what you did with the Red Wings. And you keep skirting around it a little bit because God's like, stay humble, Darren, stay humble, Darren. And let's not be humble. Let's go real quick. Let's tell these listeners about those cup goals. Tell us about that journey through it and how, as you journeyed through all of those cups and winning all that stuff, what it was like not being with God, but being sober, and then ultimately getting us to now to where you are the humble guy, that you're not talking about all those successes anymore because you're in a different state. So tell me more about the cup journey.
Yeah, I mean, and I'm, like I said, I won a Player of the Year in junior and stuff like that, and I realized that it was about everybody around me that got me to that point, whether it was teammates or coaches or family or whatever like that. So it was always about team. So for me, it's easy, like you said, and that's probably number one is try to stay humble, but what you do is not who you are. And I think it's a lot with age. A lot with, I'm not the person that I was then, because when you're younger, how do you not believe the hype? Right. You're pretty much the hometown kid. You're pretty much doing these things that are living on in infamy and stuff like this. In your heart of hearts that you've left your mark, right? In history, in the Red Wing and stuff like that. And what happens is when you lose it, then that allows the evil to seep in because you don't have your guard up. Because you've opened the door. You've unlocked all the doors.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And then your circle gets bigger, and then you're drug here, drug there, and then you know better than everybody else, and you know all this stuff, and to a point where you're backed into a corner. But that's the whole thing, is that whenever I've wanted to fight out of the corner, he's always got my back. And here's the thing. With addiction or whatever, absolutely, wherever you were, like where I was 6 years ago, over 6 years ago, if I had a drink today, I'd be right back there. It's always continued, that it never ends, right? So the fact is that, and it comes down to not liking yourself, right? So I didn't like myself, right? I'm playing this role or whatever. It was like, I believe I was like, I was like Stone Cold in Detroit. You know what I mean? Like, it was, you couldn't go anywhere. You could go anywhere. When you believe your own hype, or when you believe and you're not humble, that leads you into compromising situations that you wouldn't regularly put it in. But again, that's not because you can't look in the mirror when you walk by it. Everybody else on the outside looks at it, but you can't, because you don't like who you've become, or you don't know who you've become.
You don't like what you're feeling, right? So you're escaping those feelings and masking them with the drugs and the alcohol.
Well, a lot of that, right? Which it doesn't help when you're an alcoholic, so that just expediates. It's like gas on the fire, on the flame, and it's sort of like that spiral. Yeah, I can see it more, and the way to describe it is like a ball of yarn or something like this. If the piece that's latched on in the end falls off, well, then the ball starts to loosen a little bit, and slowly over time, and it doesn't happen overnight. It's just that all of a sudden you let this build up in time, and it becomes years and whatever like this, and then you don't know where to go. And then that's why, whether it's help, whether it's therapy, whether it's rehab, whether it's understanding that you're not alone in this fight, and that's the one thing. I'm always been humble enough to ask for help, right? To realize that. And the whole thing is, like, you got to understand, is I always wanted to know why it didn't work either, right? Like, why? Because I committed to it. Why didn't it work? Why didn't it work? And at the end of the day, I believe it's because I didn't allow myself mentally, physically, and emotionally, spiritually to use everything available that I needed.
You didn't buy into the system.
I didn't buy into the system because I had my own system.
Right. So tell me this.
I had my own system.
So let's go into the difference. We're talking about buying in, right? Obviously, with the Avalanche, there we go. Darn this Colorado kid with the Red Wings.
You wish. I know you wish. The little Colorado kid wishes I played on your team. I get it.
Yeah, no, it would have been nice. It would have been great. But with the Red Wings since 93, 94, first cup is 97. Obviously, you bought into that system, including the system of staying in the players program, keeping yourself sober for those cup drives, right? So what's the difference of buying it? What does that look like to buy into the Red Wings system?
Then life happened. No. Then life happened. My dad died. Okay. I get my first sport hernia surgery, right? I'm doing everything I can. This is 99. This is November 99. I'm doing everything I can not to drink. They're feeding me these pills and stuff like this. I hate them. That's when I was introduced to cannabis. And I smoked it, and then that was the change. But the whole thing was the fight for that sort of relief. And then when my dad passed away, it just sent me, and being injured sent me down that spiral. Now I was still sober, but then I was introduced into cannabis, and I knew that there was a difference. So then because I was sober because I went into every time 2001. So I went to rehab. So I stayed there, and then I had, and it was because I never relapsed with alcohol. I always relapsed with cannabis. Right. So that would always be, but I also knew, and this is the same thing as Ricky Williams, a football player who I'm friends with and I've had great conversations, that he developed ulcers at the University of Texas playing football because of all the Motrin that he ate. Right. So when he didn't smoke, he grew up around cannabis, but he didn't smoke because he's the same as me as far as either a jock or a stoner. But the fact that when he realized that this plant was bigger than his career, what we do is not who we are. That's when he had to step away. And that's why when he came back, he did it on his terms. But that's, a whole different conversation. But through every time, see, I committed. So when I go to rehab and stuff like this to work the program and stuff like this, boom, right there. The relationship with God always strengthens up. It's just because you haven't been home in a while doesn't mean you don't know how to get home and he's not waiting for you. Right. So I look back and it's always been every time. So let's see, 96, summer 96, my first rehab, 2001 was my second, 2005 was my third, and 2007 was my last one. Right. But it wasn't until, and I'm supposed to get it, but it wasn't because I retired in 2009. Went back heavy into my addiction, was far away from God, didn't care. I tell everybody I was leaving Las Vegas, not trying to die, but I was in the throes of drinking myself to death. I was up to 280 pounds. My blood pressure was 264 over 165. The reason I didn't stroke out or have a heart attack is because there's much cannabis in my system. Then that's when we made the decision. That's when I had to make that life or death decision at that moment. It was either, and to this day, I'm 210 pounds. My blood pressure this morning was 110 over 73. I'm off of every medication, right. Which is huge. But along the lines, see, here's the whole thing. And where it says the father or whatever that's never left, it's that when they always say, okay, I'll be like, it's almost like when I look in the mirror and I say, you look at yourself, I'm talking to God, right? I'm talking to God. And it was me walking by the mirror so long and me looking in the mirror and saying, I'm not dealing with you right now. And him looking back and go, well, I hope you're alive when you come back. And when I tell everybody is don't lie to that person, to me, that's my conversation with God.
Right.
Not that I'm God or whatever, but there's a person there and I put a physical face and somebody that and that has never changed.
Right. Well, that's it. The Bible says, I'll never leave you nor forsake you. Right. So he'll always be with you. And then
and here's the thing. That's God's honest truth.
Yep.
In my life, in my journey, in my story. Yes. Because I can look back now and say, oh, okay. And it's part of receiving the message is going back and seeing where you missed it so you don't miss it again, but also realizing, you were there. You were there.
So for you, like going back to your primary role in the league was just stirring stuff up, essentially, right? Fights. I mean, you had great goals, you had great plays.
On our team, you had to play. Right. So the fact that it was part of the grind line and the best thing is we would check the Forsbergs or the Sakic line, but we can also play. But if, something needed to be done, then I was the one that was going to stick up. I'm not Park stuff. I'm not the biggest, the baddest, but like I said, I'm going to give you everything I got.
Did you and Parks ever fight?
No.
Never.
No. I used to chat Parks up stretching before the game and just to make sure he was in a good mood. But I never made, because here's the thing, Parks is the most honorable dude.
Oh,
right. So it never, but here's the thing. And that's the one thing that I always love and respect about him. Like it wouldn't be as like if we had to, like we were gonna, but it wouldn't, there was a respect that the games never got to that point. Right. Because he came after pretty much all the aftermath and no, out of all the guys, and whether it was in Colorado, whether it was in San Jose, they called the sheriff for a reason. You know what I'm saying? That there is, and that's what we miss when all us guys that used to fight and talk about the enforcer or the toughness in the game. That's what we miss because there's accountability.
Yeah.
Right? There's accountability. And the only accountability these days to your wallet.
Yeah. Yeah, no, you didn't put that hit on that that star player because of what would happen to you if you did. You just didn't do it.
Yep.
You know, they kept you honest.
And then
kept you from
I
taking
won't
that
hit
cheap
yours,
shot.
you won't hit, right? I won't hit yours, I won't hit mine. You know, we're running each other. We'll keep it clean. Maybe not, depending on how the game goes. But
yeah. So through all of the fighting and everything, did you know, Parks struggles with the CTE and therefore is big with, you know, the CBD and stuff really seems to help him. Did you end up with the same brain stuff?
No, knock on wood. I got fortunate. I think I've had 3 or 4 confirmed concussions, but no. And that's the whole thing. So mine with the alcohol and the CBD, the CBN, all that stuff to help. It helps us all. It's all about putting ourselves back together, right? Whether it's the topicals for the pain or some of the CBN for sleep and stuff like that. It's just the education to where we're at. And you live in Colorado. I mean, you guys are like trendsetters, and especially in the labs and stuff like that. And that's the one thing is that you're going to see when it's right is I hope to see the Darren McCarty brand in Colorado, because at the end of the day, it ain't about, this thing's happened. You can hate me, this and that. But at the end of the day, we're all human beings trying. And if I can provide a product that changes your life, or changes the way and strengthens your relationship because you realize you're helping yourself into whatever it is. Now, here's the thing. To me, your endocannabinoid system is like DNA. And we all know DNA because we watch enough of that ID channel and stuff like that everybody's DNA is different. Well, your endocannabinoid system is different too. So it's your responsibility how you feed it. And that's through conversation, education. And that's why a lot of tough guys, we go to the same thing with the CBD, why it works, because we suffer from the same sort of pains and our bodies help out the same way. So it's just education to make it better, because if you sleep better, then you're going to have a better attitude. And then if you have a better attitude, then you're going to be grateful. It's easier to be grateful when you feel better.
Right. Yeah. And there's a lot of good things. I mean, I've seen it, you know, with Parks and heard Parks talk about it a lot. A lot of good things that the CBD are doing for people and making them feel, you know, better. I know that recently got some one of the pain creams for the troubles I have with my lower back and it doesn't alter my mind. So I'm not going against biblical principles as far as altering my mind, but it does help take the pain away that I feel in my lower back. So a lot of good benefits coming out of the CBD world. You know, Darren, as we kind of close here at the end of our time, I always like to ask our guests, you know, what is one thing that you want the listeners to take home? What's one thing that's on your heart to leave with the listeners?
That it's all about, it's not right or wrong, right? It's about the why, right? And don't be afraid, look always at, what do you mean by that? I'm not looking, I used to, not here to argue, I'm here to answer questions. No, I'm here to fight or answer your questions. Because it's, what do you mean by that? Do not be scared to find your truth. I wrote a book in 2013 that really helped me with get through my sobriety, because the part of the therapy, but it's called My Last Fight of a Hockey Rock Star. I signed that. Enjoy my truth. We all have our truth. And I have to see everybody live the truth that they want to live.
Yeah.
And you can't, and here's the thing. Everything I've ever accomplished, I wouldn't accomplish without that guy.
Yep.
And he's always been there, and I'm so grateful for it. And he knows that to this day. And I realize, right? Almost like I always joke and say, dude, I get it, but I wish you would have told me that we would have got to this point. And he's like, no, it doesn't work that way, kid. So.
Right. Yeah, you can't do it on your own, everybody. So if the listeners, obviously probably going to get a lot of your listeners when you share this on your social media, but for the listeners that are coming on, from the Fast Life side, if they don't know who you are, possible, I suppose, but how do they get a hold of you? Where do they find you on social media? Tell us about you do a daily show as well as another podcast. So where can they hear that at?
Yeah. So for Sports Network, daily 11 to 1 Eastern time. You can catch that on YouTube and anywhere you podcast, stuff like that. Also, DarrenMcCarty.com, McCarty4 on Twitter with the blue check mark. Real Darren McCarty on Instagram, official Darren McCarty on Facebook. I'm out and about doing a lot of stuff. I also have the longest running AM station here Friday night enforcer show from 7 to 8. So I got a lot of stuff going. I'm doing a bunch of stuff with the speedy and stuff in the independent wrestling. So you see me out there, and get up the comedy tour starting next week. We'll be out for 3 months. So busy, but love to connect. And like I said, I have a compassion for people. And I just want to spread that word. And I'm just spreading the message. I'm just one of the ones like you are, just trying to get his message out to let him know that we are all, that we're not alone. Yeah. You're not alone. We're all connected. Yep. And he's the one that connected us.
Absolutely. And the connections that continue to open up are incredible. So stay obedient to that. One of the things that Darren and I share is the alcoholism and the cocaine. Similar stories. Play hockey, obviously never at the level of you guys. But I got to skate with you and Parks. That alumni thing was pretty fun. They called me Bambi on the ice. And
we'll do it again, Bambi. Don't worry.
Yeah.
That was Parks. He was vicious.
Yeah, it is what it is. I can handle it. I got broad shoulders. But man, thank you so much for being here, Darren. As always, for our listeners, like this podcast, subscribe to the podcast, share it to friends that you never know who might need to hear your story. So don't be afraid to share. Follow us on our social medias and fastlifeministries.com to give to this organization to keep us moving. And Darren, just a blessing. Thank you again for being here. And for all our listeners, God bless. Have an amazing week.
All right. Fast Life it is. Appreciate you having me. Go God.
Appreciate you.
Thank you for listening to Faith in the Fast Life, brought to you by Fast Life Ministries. If you enjoyed the podcast, please take a minute to rate, like, and follow our podcast page so you can be the first to see new episodes every Wednesday. If there's someone who came to mind during the podcast, please send this to them. People like you sharing the show really helps us to get God's message out to a wider audience. Visit fastlifeministries.com to give to our podcast and keep us running. Thank you so much for listening. Have a great day.